How to handle people who don't respect you without losing your power. Ever stayed up at night replaying a conversation with someone who disrespected you and wished you'd handled it differently? What if the most powerful way to earn respect was through silence, not shouting? You don't need to raise your voice to raise your standards. Here's how to deal with disrespect without losing your peace. There's something soul-crushing about being disrespected. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. The eye roll when you speak, the way someone talks over you, the silence after your ideas are shared. You feel invisible, invalidated, and worst of all, you're taught to stay calm, to smile, to let it go. But what if you didn't let it go? What if you didn't have to fight, but you also didn't have to shrink? This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you are, reclaiming your ground, without shouting, without bitterness. These are 5 ways to respond to disrespect with quiet power, self-respect, and clarity. 1. Embrace the silent stare. Have you ever looked someone dead in the eye after they disrespected you, said nothing, and watched them unravel? There's a kind of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just holds steady. That power is silence. Let me tell you a moment I'll never forget. I was in a meeting with 8 people, most of them men. There was one guy, mid-40s, loud, confident, always ready with a joke, that kept cutting me off every time I spoke. At first I brushed it off. I thought, he's probably just passionate. But by the 3rd interruption, I wasn't just invisible. I felt erased. So I did something unexpected. The next time he jumped in while I was mid-sentence, I stopped. Slowly, I turned to face him, leaned back in my chair, and stared. No words. No reaction, just steady eye contact. I didn't blink, I didn't frown, I didn't flinch. The room went quiet. He faltered mid-sentence. His voice cracked. He chuckled nervously. People started looking at him. He shifted in his seat and muttered something under his breath. And then, for the rest of that meeting, he didn't interrupt me once. That was the day I realized, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Here's why it works. People who constantly disrespect others are often playing a game. They want a reaction. They want to poke, provoke, and pull you into their chaos. The moment you engage, argue, defend, justify, they win. You're now dancing to their rhythm. But when you don't flinch, when you just look at them, calm, controlled, unbothered, it throws them off their axis. Suddenly they're forced to sit with their own behavior. There's no noise to cover it, no drama to distract from it, just them and the weight of what they've done. The silent stare becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see. The stare isn't about being aggressive, it's about saying, I see what you did, and I won't dignify it with my energy. It's about making them aware, without handing them the control they were trying to take from you. Because when you remain composed, you take back the narrative. You say, I'm not here to play this game. I'm not here to convince you to treat me better. I'm here to protect my peace. It's stoic, it's subtle, and it's brutally effective. I used to be the opposite. Whenever someone crossed a line, I'd laugh nervously. I'd try to smooth things over. I thought keeping the peace meant staying quiet, avoiding confrontation. But peace without boundaries isn't peace. It's self-abandonment, and that's exactly what I was doing, abandoning myself for the sake of being likable. The silent stare was my first act of resistance. Quiet, but firm, and with time, it became second nature. Try it. The next time someone interrupts you, dismisses you, or throws shade in your direction, pause. Look at them. Let them feel the discomfort. Don't blink. Don't frown. Just hold. It might feel awkward at first. That's okay. Power often does. But soon, you'll realize something incredible. You don't need to raise your voice to raise your standards. The silent stare teaches people how to treat you. It says, I respect myself too much to lower myself to your chaos. And that is a message that echoes louder than any argument ever could. 2. Embrace silence as your answer. Have you ever been confronted with someone who just can't seem to stop pushing your buttons? They keep testing your patience, questioning your choices, or outright disrespecting you, waiting for a reaction. And every time you feel this pressure to respond, to defend yourself, to explain. But here's the truth, sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Why does silence work so well? When someone disrespects you, what are they really looking for? They want your attention. They want you to react, to engage, to defend. They want to pull you into their drama so they can feel validated in their behavior. They want you to feel small, to justify yourself, to argue with them. But when you refuse to give them that reaction, you break the cycle. You deny them the very thing they crave. Silence isn't weakness. It's strength. It's saying, I don't need to prove myself to you. I don't need to engage with your negativity. And when you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving away your power. You stop giving someone else the right to make you feel like you owe them an explanation for your life. Here's how you can embrace silence as your answer. The next time someone questions you, doubts your decisions, or disrespects, you pause, take a deep breath, look them in the eye, and then say nothing. Let the silence speak for you. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but in time, you'll realize that you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to explain. You don't need anyone's validation. Your silence will do the work for you. It will make them reflect on their behavior. It will remind them that you don't have to engage in their drama. You are in control. The beauty of silence? It keeps your energy intact. It protects your peace. Too often we get caught up in the habit of responding. We feel the need to explain, to justify, to make things right. But when you embrace silence, you stop draining yourself. You stop giving people access to your emotional energy. Instead, you choose to protect your energy by keeping your peace. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your silence does that for you. So next time someone disrespects you, don't feel the need to react. Don't feel like you have to explain or defend. Just breathe. Let the silence settle between you like a shield. It's a powerful way to reclaim your peace. And often it's the most effective answer you can give. 3. Stop explaining your choices. Let me ask you something. How many hours of your life have you spent explaining yourself to people who had already made up their minds about you? Too many. Same here. We live in a culture that demands justification for anything that doesn't follow the expected path. You change jobs? Explain it. You don't show up to a party? Justify it. You set a boundary? Defend it. And if you don't, they assume you're hiding something, being difficult, or just plain wrong. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. You don't owe anyone an explanation for living your life in alignment with your values. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I left a job that most people would kill for. Great salary, prestige, a clear ladder to climb. But inside, I was dying slowly. I'd wake up each day with this heaviness in my chest. I didn't feel alive. I felt obligated. So one morning I made the leap. I left. And the reactions? Wait, why? You're throwing it all away? What's your backup plan? That's risky. Are you sure? At first I answered every question. I had PowerPoints of logic. I mapped out my finances. I shared spreadsheets, long-winded, strategic overviews of my next steps. I felt like I had to convince everyone I wasn't making a mistake, but it didn't work. The more I explained, the more they doubted me. Not because they were evil, but because they were projecting their fear onto my freedom. That's when I realized I was wasting precious life energy trying to earn permission from people who would never live my life for me. So I stopped explaining. When someone asked, "Why'd you leave that job?" I started saying, "Because I wanted to." And then I left it there. No further commentary. No justification. And guess what? The conversation either ended or their respect began. Because people can feel when you're rooted in your decision. When you own it, fully, there is something magnetic about someone who stands in their truth, silently, someone who simply says, "This is the relationship I want. This is the job I left. This is the boundary I've set," and leaves it at that. No apology. No over-explaining. Just presence. That kind of person is unshakable. And you can become that kind of person. Here's how to stop explaining yourself. Replace over-explaining with one calm sentence. Instead of, "I didn't come because I had a hard day and I was overwhelmed and I didn't want to disappoint you," and say, "I needed some rest." Period. Let silence do the heavy lifting. After your short sentence, pause. You don't have to fill in the gaps. The discomfort belongs to them, not you. Expect discomfort and stay rooted anyway. People will push, they'll poke, they'll try to guilt trip you back into compliance. Don't fold, stay calm. Trust yourself. Ask yourself this: if they didn't agree with me, would they even believe my explanation? Often, they're not looking for understanding. They're looking for control. You don't have to give it to them. Remember this: your life isn't a debate, it's a decision. You don't have to shrink your bold, beautiful choices down to bite-sized explanations that make others feel comfortable. You don't have to justify joy, or peace, or risk, or boundaries. You only have to honor what you know is right for you. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you begin reclaiming your life. 4. Keep your distance. Some people don't deserve a front row seat to your life. That may sound harsh, but it's one of the most important truths you'll ever accept. There are people in this world who will take your kindness for weakness, who will push your boundaries for fun, and who only feel powerful when they make others feel small. These are the people who drain your spirit, and no matter how many chances you give them, they won't change because they have no reason to. That's why one of the most stoic, courageous acts of self-respect is distance. Let me tell you about someone I used to call a close friend. He was charming, funny, and magnetic in social settings. But in private, there was always a catch. Backhanded compliments, subtle jabs, constant one-upmanship. I would share something vulnerable, and he'd turn it into a joke. I'd open up about my dreams and he'd roll his eyes, and every time I tried to pull away, I'd feel guilty. We've been friends for years, I'd think. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. But here's what I finally learned. History doesn't obligate you to tolerate disrespect. One day, after another night of subtle humiliation dressed as humor, I stopped replying. Not with anger, just quiet, intentional space. 1 week became 2. 2 weeks became a month. Eventually, the silence became permanent. And in that space, I healed. I realized that every time I had left a conversation with him, I felt smaller. Like I had to shrink in order to stay connected, and that's not friendship. That's self-abandonment. Distance taught me that you can love someone, forgive someone, even wish them well, from far away. Not every goodbye needs an announcement. Sometimes the most powerful boundaries are silent. They're not about making the other person feel bad. They're about making yourself feel safe. Here's the truth. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't have to explain yourself to the people you're stepping away from. You don't have to provide proof that they crossed a line. Your experience is enough. Your discomfort is enough. Your healing doesn't require their understanding. So if someone repeatedly disrespects you, minimizes you, or takes from you without giving back, step back. You don't have to slam the door. Just close it gently and walk away. Distance isn't cold. It's clarity. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for both of you is let go. 5. Hold your head high. Disrespect thrives on intimidation. It feeds off your doubt, your silence, your tendency to look away. It wants you to shrink, just enough so that you forget your own worth. But when you walk into a room with your shoulders back and your head held high, you send a message, one that doesn't need to be spoken. I know who I am, and I don't need your validation. Let me take you back to a conference I once attended. It was full of high-status people, executives, influencers, leaders. I'd been invited to speak, but in the lounge beforehand, no one made eye contact. A few glanced at my name tag and turned away. I overheard someone say, "Never heard of them." I felt the old reflex start to kick in, that urge to prove myself, to list credentials, to shrink into the background and disappear. But then I remembered something powerful. If you don't claim your space, someone else will define it for you. So I took a deep breath, stood up straight, and walked into that auditorium like I was meant to be there, because I was. I gave my talk. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't use big words, I just stood in my truth. And by the end, the same people who had ignored me earlier were lining up to shake my hand. Here's the lesson. Confidence isn't about arrogance, it's about ownership. It's the quiet, steady knowing that you are worthy before anyone else agrees. Holding your head high doesn't mean you're better than others. It means you're not available for their attempts to make you feel less than. So when someone mocks you, underestimates you, or tries to put you in a box, stand tall. Meet their gaze, not with anger, but with certainty. They don't get to define you. Because when you respect yourself deeply, the opinions of others start to shrink. Not because they don't matter, but because they don't decide your worth. Posture matters. The way you sit, walk, speak, it sends a signal. And the signal is this: I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it to you. So lift your chin, straighten your spine, step into rooms like you belong there, because you do. And when disrespect shows up, let your presence be the answer. They'll feel it. And more importantly, so will you. Conclusion. At the end of the day, not everyone will respect you. And that's okay. Because the one person whose respect matters most is you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them gossip. You don't have to respond. You don't have to explain. You just have to keep walking. Walk with dignity. Walk with peace. Walk like someone who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need anyone's permission to be it. Thank you truly for spending your time with this video. If something here resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a thumbs up. And if this journey speaks to you, consider subscribing to explore more on how to take ownership of your life and build unshakable confidence from within. Feel free to share this with someone who might need a gentle reminder that they deserve respect and have every right to stand tall in who they are. And if you've ever had to set boundaries or navigate moments of disrespect, I'd be honored to hear your story in the comments below. Until next time, take care, stay strong, and always remember, respect begins with you.